All right, okay, so I hope everyone enjoyed your lunch today. You know how they feed prisoners before they execute them? That's what's going to happen today. Jeng, jeng, jeng. Academic briefing, right? Okay. So, you all have decided on psychology as a career choice. That's very brave of you. I will tell you straight up that if your goal is to make money, this is not it. So if you are thinking of like big bucks, I would suggest you just change your module over your program over to business lah, or economics or something a bit more lucrative, maybe pre-med or whatever lah, right? But psychology is very meaningful. I think a lot of people do enjoy the work. It's important work. Somebody's got to do it. And there are many different types and kinds of psychology out there as well. So about the psychology program, we've been here for about 20 years now, right? I think the psych program has been around since 2005. So what really is psychology? You should sort of have a bit of an understanding of what it encompasses now, right? But if you're going in blind, then that's fine also, right? Basically, we are studying human behavior and cognition. A lot of people are like, oh, you're a psychologist, can you read my mind? And the answer is no, but you're probably so good with human behavior that you can probably lie to them that you can, and they will still believe you. So that's something to aspire towards the end of your 4 years, right? So we are studying human behavior, which is how people react, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, as well as their cognition, how people think, right, in general. But there is a lot of intersection with psychology. We are looking at anthropology, which is very, very cool, very, very fun, study of cultures, biology, medical science, neuroscience, philosophy, sociology. All of these are sort of encompassed within the psychological field, right? So psychology in SSS does offer very, very, very valuable practical training. So for those of you who are, how many of you are afraid of getting a job in the future? You're afraid of the job market, right? Okay, for those of you who are not raising your hand, you're obviously lying. So, because even I'm afraid of the job market for you. I'm not tenured yet, so I still need to think about the job market. Once the tenure is a 28-year contract the school gives you for being a professor. I'm not there yet, but once I'm there, then I will come here and laugh at everyone. But for now, no, right? So we do focus a lot on the applied stuff for you, right, in the psychology program, which is great because that puts us a little bit above the university down the road when it comes to job market, such as, you all know the university down the road, right? NUS. Right. So in general, I think like people, like in my work with internship, as an internship coordinator, internship supervisor, companies generally do prefer NTU students and James Cook students as well, for some reason, because of all the statistics and methodology stuff that you guys learn, so will learn, so which is quite comprehensive. So that aspect of psychology is pretty important. So already you are a little bit more marketable than some other people, right? So that's one good thing. So the NUS psych people, not to disparage them, they're great and whatever, but they generally take lesser applied courses than what we offer here, right? So that's good, right? And also they're very confused. So I do mentor some NUS students outside with like SG psych stuff, and they're always a little bit confused, right? So hopefully you won't be as confused, so that's good. Right. So where can you go after this? Several places as well. So we will train you not only to be clinical psychologists. I know many of you want to be clinical psychologists, but trust me, over the next 4 years, some of you might just cut that dream away and be like, okay, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to listen to people's problems anymore, right? I just want to sit in a room and do some research, that's fine. Or go out into the community and do some other research work, or go join a company and like, you know, do HR and stuff like that. Many of you will switch, right? I entered wanting to do clinical psychology also. I was like, oh yes, clinical psychology. Oh yes, tell me about your depression. Oh your anxiety, right? And stuff like that. And then I realized that my N value, the number of people that I'll be working with, is always equals to 1. It's just one person, one-on-one, right? And then I was like, okay, then how? Then I have to go overseas and study because we don't really have a PsyD program yet, so Doctor in Psychology program. And then it was just a lot of work for me, so I just sort of abandoned that. I wanted to do IO psychology for a while, that's industrial organizational psychology. That was pretty interesting. My lecturer at that time, she felt that I would be a really good match because I like to talk, right? And she's like, you'll be perfect for this job. But then I did a couple of modules and it wasn't really my thing. I actually, like my friends actually have a picture of me asleep in the lecture from like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, not 20 years ago, I'm not that old, but about 10 years ago, right? And then like, yeah, so that's the only module I fell asleep in, unfortunately. So I felt like that was a sign that I shouldn't make this my job, so I didn't. Right? You will eventually see my career progression, but yeah. So many of you will also continue your education. So generally psychology, the field of psychology in Singapore, if you want to be an associate psychologist, you have to have a master's degree, meaning you have to have one from either NUS or SUSS now or one of those courses. And we will discuss that closer to when you graduate because there are a lot of things to talk about, like registration, you know, that kind of stuff. Fees, whether or not you can actually afford it. It's $81,000 now for the NUS master's program. It will go up by the time you complete your degree. But that's not the only way forward, so don't worry about it, right? Probably telling you don't worry about it is making you worry even more. All right, okay, so yeah, so many of you will probably go on to do masters, maybe PhD as well, if you really enjoy the academic work, which I'm sure some of you will do. Or you can join industry, you can join community, NGOs, all sorts of places, right? Psychology is very, very broad, and I'm sure you'll find one part of it that really resonates with you, that you really, really enjoy, right? So psychology can look like this, right? This is pretty much what people always think about when they think of psychologists. Right, this whole Sigmund Freud sitting in a chair, talking about problems, right? Teaching people CBT, REMBT, all the BTs, behavioral therapy, that kind of stuff, right? Psychology can also look like this, right? You strap people to weird machines and then you track their eye movements, and some of our professors do this, and it's a lot of fun. It's always may seem unethical, but it generally is because we have to go through ethics review, right? So yeah, so sometimes psychology might be studying this, right? Sensations, perceptions, how people view the world, how we engage with the universe around us. Psychology can also be like this person over here, right? Post-it notes, right? You're in a leadership position in a company, you're running a consultancy for organizations, you're teaching people how to be more effective leaders, how to be more effective workers, how to basically make more money for the company, right? But in the upside is that, flip side is that you get paid a lot of money, right? So the highest paying psychological profession generally are IO psychologists, industrial organizational psychologists, or HR professionals. So that really, if you want to make money, this is probably the only way to go about it. Like, I mean, make money as in like a lot of money, right? Where you can drive like a Mercedes-Benz and actually afford a car, right? So you will see me on the bus, right? Right, so you know the range that professors earn, it's not a lot, right? So yeah, generally, right, psychology looks like this, right? It is a lot of papers, a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of considering questions and answers to these questions, right? Some of you may pursue academia even though you feel like you struggle against it and you feel like, oh, I don't want to study for a living. I was like that. Right? I really felt that if you told me like 10 years ago that I would study for a living, I would say y'all are crazy, right? But it ended up that I actually am here now, so that's how it worked out, right? So again, you might find something that you feel, hey, this is actually really interesting. This is a path that I want to move towards, right? And some of you may come in, you might want to work with young kids, you might want to work with adults. I mean, you might want to work with adolescents. And then you ask yourself after like 2 or 3 sessions with younger people, why am I doing this? Right? Like what I do every time I speak to you guys. No, just kidding. I love working with young people, right? So, but yeah, you know, some of you may be like, oh, I want to work with children. And then you hear a kid cry and cry and cry, and you're like, oh my God, maybe I do not want to work with children. And then some of you might be like, oh, I really want to work with old people. And then you realize that sometimes you just cannot handle how much they're talking and what it is, and all the problems, and like just stop listening, believing things in WhatsApp, right? Like my mother, is this true? Like, you know, meteor going to crash into the earth like yesterday. And like, everything is conspiracy theory, right? So yeah, so you might change lah. You might change the samples, the people that you want to work with, right? So that will happen over the course of your psychological degree. Right, so just keep an open mind. The psychology degree is broad. It's broad for a reason. It's broad so you can experience many, many types of things. Right. Okay, NTU psychology. Right, it's real estate agent. Right, so obviously we had to put Prof. Olivia here. She's very photogenic. So yeah, we were launched in 2005. So we're not a very old program, but we are a very, very good one, I would say. We have about 20 people who are full-time faculty members, so all of your professors and lecturers. We also have a lot of international scholars and people who are doing active research and cutting-edge stuff, right? So international scholars are, so let me give you an example of one of my favorite people in the faculty, one of the people that I find the most inspiring, other than Prof. Andy Ho, who's our head of psychology, is Prof. Victoria Leong. So Vicky is amazing. If you hear her speak, right, you'll be like so inspired to do so many things, right? So Vicky graduated from, where was it? Oxford, right? Cambridge, one of them. She graduated in Oxford or Cambridge, then she went to Oxford or Cambridge to do a PhD, and then she went to Harvard to do a postdoc. So she did like basically all of these huge top tier schools, right? And she has hit all three of the big ones, right, in the world, and she's here now. Right, so Prof. Vicky Leong is, so a lot of students do want to work with her for their final year projects and stuff like that. So that's the kind of education that you're getting, right? And me, I graduated from NTU. So now you realize that every time I'm up for promotion, right, or up for like, what do you call that, performance review, my competition is people like Prof. Vicky Leong, and I'm like, oh, how am I surviving? Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah. So very good international scholars, very good researchers, a lot of active research happening over here. Right? So many of us are trained at the world's leading universities or have spent some time there. Right? So Prof. Noah has done time. No, it's not a prison sentence. He's worked, he did his postdoc in Stanford, like University of Michigan, NYU, CUNY, all these places, so all over the place, right? Urbana-Champaign, all these areas as well. So all of us have had some training or at least some connections to these places also, right? So we have 3 adjunct faculty members, so 3, right? It feels like there are more. Okay, yeah, so 3 . So adjunct faculty, so these are people who are industry professionals. So they'll come in and they'll teach you. So one of them is Paul, the other Paul, what's his name? All right, yeah, so Majid. So Prof. Majid is amazing. He basically single-handedly set up the psychological behavioral science side of the Singapore Police Force. So he's still very involved in that, right? So yeah, so Majid, Jensen, all these people, I think there's also Paul Anglet, right? The IO guy, right? Yeah, so he's he does white-collar boxing, which is a thing. I don't know what that is. Basically rich people punching each other. Sounds fun. Right, and also honorary joint appointments. So we had Fred Long, who is the guy who started SPS, Singapore Psychological Society, on our panel, but I'm not sure where he is now. His office is just empty, which is quite creepy. So anyway, yeah, so we have honorary joint appointments. So we are constantly bringing people in from industry, right, so that you actually have industry experience. So people like Paul Angler and stuff like that, he does consultancies and things like that, and you really get to hear industry-related stories. So that's really very, very cool, right? So this person over here is someone you should know. He's Prof. Andy, he's our head of psychology. So he's the one that runs the show for the department, right? This is him. This is him now. He's no longer associate, he's full professor. This was him about 8 years ago. This was him 3 years ago. So obviously he doesn't age. So I don't know what his secret is. Right, so yeah. All right, okay, so the undergraduate degree program. So psychology majors generally across everyone, we have about more than 400 students. So this is obviously my module, because we dress up for Halloween. So you're free to do it, right? So I always encourage my students to dress up for Halloween. So we had a banana, we had Papa Smurf, who is also Karl Marx. He's a foil of Karl Marx. And this girl was Sonic, the hedgehog. I can't really see it, but she had the red colored shoes and she was blue, right? So, and this person actually painted herself blue. So yeah, it didn't wash off properly if I remember. So that was problematic, Right, I probably should have led with this picture. Psychology, people who are doing minors, about 100 lah. So you'll see these people in your ICC courses. What is ICC? I'll tell you a bit later on. Right, so this is, you might see some familiar faces over here. So Jeremy's here as well. And these guys, basically, they dressed up as me for Halloween. This is the floral shirt, the long pants, and usually I bring a bottle of green tea to lecture. So this is me lah, right? So they dressed up as me. So I dressed up as a Pokemon professor. So this was our Prof. Birch, right? Yeah, so you can tell how much of a nerd I am lah, right? Okay, so double major, you also see people who are doing double majors lah. So double major, any double major here? Right, yeah, so a couple of you, right? So economics, linguistics, or MA Media Analytics lah, right? So your trajectory for double major is a little bit different from people who are just doing pure psychology. But yeah, I mean, you all chose this, so I mean like, okay, that's kind of your problem. It's a you issue now, right? Okay, so I won't spend a lot of time because I want to give you guys time for questions. So I will go through the slides a little bit quicker. If you have questions, just stop me lah. And let me know. Okay, so some of our research labs, right? So we do have a lot of fun labs that are happening here. So not every lab is like a laboratory where we hook people up to machines and stuff like that. Some of us definitely do that, but a lot of us don't. A lab is just a group of people who are doing the same thing, right? This guy, right? Yeah, you got a lot of photos from me from graduation already, so I don't know why I'm like, just always the face, right? Because I think I'm the least threatening one. Okay, so some labs are motive assessment, adolescent behavioral lab, right? So if you want to work with young adults, you want to study K-pot, vaping, right? Right, and that kind of stuff, like that shit is scary, man. Like there's a student who works with younger people, and she was telling me like literally they're shaking and drinking the bubble tea, and like K-pot, right? They're on like ketamine high. So it's very, very scary. It is a bit of an endemic now, like, it's becoming worse, right? So yeah, if you want to study a bit about how adolescents grow and change and their executive function, making smart decisions change throughout time developmentally, Prof. Joyce is a great person to work with. So she's quite senior management, so she's a little bit hard to catch at times, but really a very, very wonderful person. And she also is an expert in personality psychology, which I teach also. Chulin, not around anymore, right? Okay, so Chulin, okay, so he has moved, I think, to another university, so we probably need to update this. Prof. Pepe are also very, very popular for people to do their final year project with, right? So she works with kids, infants, mother-child relationships in her early cognition lab, right? So very big team, I think, Prof. Pepe, right? So very big team, and she's also another overachiever, right? So, right. Okay, so Vicky, Prof. Victoria Long, no need to tell you, right? Absolutely amazing. So Baby Link, I think, is also linked to Harvard, right? Baby Link has the, yeah, it's also her Harvard lab that comes in, and all this kind of stuff that she does. So Prof. Susie, she runs the Blip Lab. I think that's currently in LKC, but also has a bit of some parts here in NTU. Also brain language intersensory perception, also with younger children, Prof. Susie, right? Prof. Olivia is Singapore's only criminologist in the employ of a university. So her courses, if you all like, how many of you like true crime-related stuff? What is wrong with you people, in honesty? Honestly, right, so my wife absolutely adores this. She watches it to calm down. And I'm like, calm down? Right? She's long day, oh, let me see some murder. I'm like, why is... And I don't get it, you know, I cannot. The more gory, the more she finds oh yes, this is amazing. And I cannot, I will just vomit, but she will be like, yeah. She loves it. She's like, yeah. So Prof. Olivia also, some students go through a course and I'm a bit traumatized now. They're like, what? Who asked you to take? This is on you, right? But she is, yeah, like I mentioned, Singapore's only criminologist in employ of a university. So fantastic conversations you can have with her about crime, capital punishment, prison services, forensic psychology, all that kind of stuff, right? Prof. Annabelle, I think, is one of our She's been around for quite some time, so she really has a lot of expertise. One of the top tier neuro people in Singapore, right? So she does a lot of work with brain neuroscience, neurobiology, parts of the brain, right? Stuff like that. Prof. Catherine does self-culture society. She does work like national pride, right? National kind of like perceptions of identity, right? So culture, that kind of stuff. Prof. Albert, very popular, so he teaches cultural psychology. He does culture, cognition, religion as well, religious studies, a little bit of that. So pretty interesting. Prof. Andy is, again, our head of psychology, so he runs the Action Research for Community Health Lab, which I am also a part of. So this one does work with, we work with all sorts. We work with people in the community who have stroke, chronic diseases, heart diseases. Personally, I work with grief and bereavement. So I work with people who have lost a loved one. I work with people at the end of life. So me and Prof. Andy are both trained thanatologists. So basically, we study death, dying, grief, and bereavement from an academic perspective, right? So some of the work that we do, yeah, pretty interesting. So you can actually go into these labs. I mean, don't just walk in, but like you can actually join these labs as like final year project if the professors have a project ongoing, right? So you can join, you can take data from them, you can work with them. Sometimes there is a call for student research assistants as well, right? So that you can go and join them and get some experience also. And Prof. Ringo runs the Career Aspiration Research Hub. Right now, like you know, right? You know, careers are such a huge, confusing time for everyone, so we need to know what is the structure surrounding it, right? So Prof. Ringo is also an excellent statistician, probably the best you will ever see in this lifetime. This man is absolutely amazing what he can do with like statistics and numbers. How many of you have had statistics experience? You're in for a treat. Okay, for those of you who do not, don't worry, don't be afraid of it. It can seem very daunting at first, but it's not math, it's logic. So just go in with that thinking, right? Because statistics anxiety is actually a thing in psychology students, right? I know it's a thing because I have a colleague from James Cook who's studying it. That's his research topic, statistics anxiety. So if it's big enough to be a research topic, you know, it might be a problem for some of you. But don't be afraid of stats, right? Stats is actually very, very manageable. And some of you may even come to enjoy it, right? Because when all the numbers come together and all your data collection analysis just fits and you see that little star that is like, oh yes, P is less than 0.05. I made it, you know. It's quite fulfilling, gets you a bit high actually, right? So yeah, so that's Prof. Ringo. So some of the labs that we have here, right? Any questions about this? Any questions? So there are new labs being set up every once in a while. Once I have a pot of money, I'll probably set up my own lab about grief and bereavement, probably over the next couple of years. Yeah, right? And no questions so far, right? Okay, wonderful. Let's go into your program structure, right? Okay, so for single majors, okay, how many of you from Poly? Oh, quite a lot from Poly this time around. So JC, right? Okay, JC. Then where else? Like private students? Right, okay. So I was a private student, but more on my mysterious past when you take my module, right? Okay. So generally, I find that y'all had, I think for Poly students, there's a bit of like can use the credit to. Yeah, okay, so there's some exemptions for you guys. So if you want to know a little bit more, talk to Hui Ching, talk to Yang Chia later, right? But for Poly students, yeah, I think the learning curve isn't so chalat because you know all the basic stuff already. But you still need to work hard, right? Okay, so for single majors, generally you'll be required 128 AUs for you to graduate, right? What is an AU? Academic unit, right? So it's not as confusing as it sounds, you just have to plan ahead. Right, so your major requirements from psychology is this amount, and then these are your BDEs, your broadening and deepening electives. So your BDEs are basically stuff you can take from other schools in NTU, right? So you might want to do things like astronomy. Astronomy is the study of, yeah, correct, the cosmic stuff. Not astrology, that's not an actual study, that's not a science. Oh my God, I'm a Capricorn, right? It's not that, right? Right, Capricorn. right? Born under the 5th star, Mercury is in microwave, whatever, right? So that's BD. So that's BDEs. You can take, so astronomy one is actually really popular. I think it's always like sold out. Students do like stuff from business, from biological sciences, microbiology, all sorts lah. You might take a PPGA mod, public policy, what? Eureka? Eureka what? What's a Eureka program? That's under BDE? Okay, yeah, so yeah, I should know that. So your Eureka program is also under your BDE. What is your Eureka program? Undergraduate research, yeah, you've heard of it, right? Yeah, so that comes under the BDEs as well, right? And then you have the ICC. So the ICC courses are across the entire university. So you'll be working with people from the engineering side, the business side, the computing side. So it's all over the place, right? So your ICCs, you have the core, ICC core, as well as ICC professional studies, right? So there are a few that you need to pick up in your first couple of years. Usually your ICC mods, I would suggest don't finish too late, right? Finish that, clear those earlier so that you have time to do the more, I wouldn't say fun, the more exciting psychology mods, right? Your 3,000, 4,000 courses, right? So this is for single majors, right? For people, for example, second major, right, PSBS, biological sciences, it doesn't cut like that, so you're not taking just more of basic subjects, you're taking also subjects with quite a lot of depth in your biological sciences major, right? So you are expected these number of AUs for your psychology one, and this number of AUs for your biological science modules. So probably all the cores, right, you need to take with biosciences. And then same, your ICC as well as your BDE. So you have a little bit lesser AUs for BDEs, but that's also fine because most of it are just fed into your biological sciences one, right? Ken, right? Okay, right? Some of you yawning, right? Yeah, and then when you're like confused about it, you're like, oh my God, how? Right? See who's yawning then? Nah, just kidding. No, y'all must be very tired, right? Running around last week, right? Were there any scandals this year? Did anyone chant Kukubert? Kukubert, no, right? Okay, good. That happened a few years ago at the orientation camp. Okay, major requirements, your core subjects. This is what you will basically need to do, right, for your course. Intro to psychology. So Prof. Darren teaches that. He's sitting at the back over there. Okay, don't all turn at once, right? So intro to psych. So intro to psych is your bare bones basic, like, okay, this is what psychology is about. It's a very fun module. You have like a lot of, you will learn all sorts of things from everywhere, the bio stuff, you know, all the important studies that we've done in psychology throughout the years, right? So that's your intro to psychology. That's in your first year, first set, the very basic, because we can't have you doing like advanced stuff without knowing the ropes, right? Okay, then we go to fundamentals of social science research. This is your first statistics module that you will take. Right? Difficult or not? Okay lah, okay. So your seniors say, okay lah, right? Manageable, can. Don't worry, right? Fundamental of social science research, very important. So make sure you spend a little bit of time learning a little bit more about statistics and learning how it can work for you. So again, don't go in fearing it, right? Go in thinking that it's a fun little challenge because it really is, right? So that's your basic statistics. And then you move on to a little bit more advanced stats, right? So this is really thinking how studies can come into being, right? Okay, very good. Okay, so yeah, so how studies can actually form. How do I, as a psychology major, create a study? How do I run a study? Right? How do I collect data? What kind of data do I collect? Is it nominal? Is it ordinal? Right? All these kinds of stuff, right? Falls under here. So creating a study, gathering the data, running the data, analyzing it, interpreting it, that's really like bread and butter stuff for psychologists, right? Even if you're in clinical psychology, chances are you'll still need to use some of these techniques and toolkits, right? Then you move on to take developmental psychology. So this is, usually people think that it's only with regards to kids and adolescents, but that's really not the case. It's across the developmental lifespan, right? But most developmental psychologists also sort of focus on the growing up part. But it's a very fun module, and I think being taught by Prof. Pepe, right? And Prof. Li Tzu as well, right? And then there's also social psychology. So how is it that people work in groups, right? How is it that people function within society and like social interactions and stuff like that? So this is Albert, right? Yeah, so Prof. Albert takes this very, very popular course. And yeah, so you get to see all the fun stuff that he gets to do with you. So intergroup relations, all that kind of stuff, right? So which is very current right now, right? If you think about it. You all follow American politics. Obviously, you have no choice, right? You know, and then like, Democrat, Republicans, conservative, red state, blue state, gun laws. Oh my gosh, never mention guns to an American. You're always in for a bit of argument there. So all that kind of fun stuff is covered in social psychology. Then we move on to the more bio part, right? The biopsychology. Any of you JC students did arts, like humanities and arts? No science stuff at all, right? No science stuff. Okay, never mind. Don't worry. It's still manageable, right? It's still manageable. You will do fine, right? Okay, so don't be scared of like, oh my God, I didn't take bio as a student, or I didn't take physics or chemistry, how die? No, can. Right? So biological psychology basically is like how the brain interacts with your behaviors, right? So things like your neurochemicals, right? All that kind of like your whichever parts of the brain, what is the, oh my God, I'm trying to remember, what is your limbic system, what is the hippocampus, what does that do? All that kind of stuff with the brain, the biological processes of the brain, right? So that's usually taken in your second sem, right? Sometimes students sort of mess things up a little bit, then you end up taking a core module very late in your career, right? Meaning year 3, year 4. And I wouldn't really recommend that because you should be spending more time doing more important things at that point in your academic career, right? So try and finish your course early, right? Because sometimes I see students like year 4, then they're doing like my core module. Then I'm like, what are you doing here? Then they're like, oh, plan wrongly. I'm like, oh, okay. Then I was like, how? Oh, sian lah. Then I was like, yeah lah. Again, this skill issue, man, right? So yeah, so that's biological psychology. Personality, individual differences. So this is the one that I teach. Was it fun? Yes. All right. Okay, very good. I did not pay them to say that, right? Maybe I did, right? Okay. So personality, individual differences. Basically, we learn things like how is it that personality is formed in the individual? How do we measure it? What are some major theories out there? You know, we talk a little bit about like, oh, okay, introversion, extroversion. You all know the MBTI, right? The MBTI, yeah, we shit on the MBTI. It's a lot of fun, right? All these kinds of tests and things like that. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the MBTI, but we'll discuss that more in the module, right? So stuff like that, generally quite interesting. What is motivation, goals? You know, how is it that people are motivated to do certain things? Why, right? Why is someone an extrovert? Can I change? I don't like being an introvert anymore. Can I become extroverted, right? So all that kind of stuff we will discuss in personality, individual differences, right? So fairly interesting module. And then we move to cognitive psychology. So this is how your brain produces things like how it makes like schemas. You know, how is it that the thinking process is sort of spelled out based on what we know in the research and in the literature, right? Also very interesting. And finally, we have abnormal psychology, which is, I think a lot of people feel is another bread and butter course. It's what is depression? What is anxiety? What is schizophrenia? What is personality disorder? All that kind of stuff, right? What are aberrations to normal functioning, right? So that's abnormal psychology. I think Prof. Annabelle teaches this still, right? Yeah. So these are your course. So already a lot of fun, So sometimes people, just from taking the course, they kind of decide that, actually I want to move more into this area. And that's great, because if you do, we do have 3,000, 4,000 courses as well that can help you specialize into your research, into your research interests, into your interests, right? So after that, you have 34 or 28 AUs to take a mix of 3,000 and 4,000 subjects, right? So 3,000 and 4,000, basically these are your more advanced level psychology modules, right? They are more specialized, and we'll go through them very, very soon. And then after this, finally, you will need to do your graduation project. So if you have a CGPA of 3.9 and above, FYP, final year project is compulsory. You have to do a FYP, right? If you don't hit this number, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. You just don't need to do graduation project lah. So that's sometimes like also a blessing, because FYP sometimes can be a lot to handle, right? So again, your FYP also sort of determines your honors grading, whether you can get first class honors, second class upper, all that kind of stuff lah. How important is honors grading? I will tell you that it depends, right? It depends, because if you want to study some more, master's, PhD level, first class and second upper honors usually is the minimum requirement for many universities, right? It is for us as well, for a master's program, at least second upper honors. If you don't hit second upper honors, it is not the end of the world, right? You can still get to a PhD with a pass degree. I have seen my colleagues, but then you have to take what I call the scenic route lah. You know, you basically spend more time in the workforce, you do more research work, you publish more papers to sort of make up for that honors grading. So schools generally will also allow you to do your master's, PhD if you don't hit the CGPA, if you have good work experience, right, and research experience, and you kind of really know what you're doing, right? Because, you know, life is like that. No matter how much we plan, sometimes things just don't work out the way we want it to. That's not any of your fault. That's just life, right? Doesn't mean that you have lost, so don't consider it a failure, right? So yeah, but if you do want to do your FYP and you fall just below this number, you can appeal in. Most of the appeals are successful, but we have to go through the academic chair, which is Prof. Wyman, right? So again, if you don't want to do, or you cannot do the FYP, you can take 2 additional 4,000 level subjects, which is maybe for some people easier on them lah, right? So it really depends. So for FYP, there are 2 types. There's option A and option B. Option A is the lead review, right? Okay, I always confuse this. Option A is the systematic review. So you basically are doing a review paper with a group, with a team, and you find a research topic with your professor, with your supervisor, and then you find out everything you can about it, and then you write a paper about it. These papers are usually very, very publishable, right? Research review papers are very publishable. So you might actually end up like having an edge of having a publication before you even graduate, right? And then option B is the one that most students tend to go for, and this is a one-on-one FYP with a professor, and basically you are running a research study. You're either taking data from the professor's ongoing study, or you're coming up with your own study, collecting the data and analyzing it, coming up with a project, right? So 2 options for your FYP, right, your final year project. Right, FYP is a lot of fun. I think many students enjoy this process. It can be a little bit stressful, so do plan and your time properly lah, throughout that 2 semesters that you have to do this. So you have 2 semesters for your FYP, right? Okay? Okay, so level 3 courses. Level 3 courses are, like I said, a little bit more specialized, right? We teach everything from positive psychology, which is the art and science of being happiness, or the art and science of being happiness, Englishing. The art and science of being happy, right? So Prof. Andy teaches this. I used to teach it, but depending on the cohort, we will either have 2 per time we run it, or Prof. Andy will just take it lah, right? Psychology and everyday design, I'm not sure if it's still being run, because this was Chulin's mod, right? So probably not, cancelled, right? Advanced statistics, so applied statistics methods. So for those of you who really want to make big bucks as a biostatistician, bam, go and do all your advanced stats, right? I tell you, right, all researchers love a good statistician, right? People will just fall on your feet. If you like to be worshipped, do statistics, right? So yeah, so I mean, like, sometimes in my role, my work as a health psychologist, I do work with biostatisticians, so people to run the data for me, big data sets, right? And we pay them a lot of money for consultancy work, right? You can actually earn a lot of good cash. So yeah, so what I said about earning money, not entirely true lah. Sometimes you can earn big bucks, right? Yeah, so stats is one of those ways forward. Evolutionary psychology, I think this is taught by Prof. Michael Gummert. So Michael is great. So evolutionary psychology is basically how did our brains and our behaviors sort of evolve to where we are at now, right? What are some things that we have not been able to let go in our evolutionary history that we are still being forced to use, right, in our day-to-day interactions with the world. Primate behavioral ecology, so Prof. Michael is also the leading world expert on the Singaporean macaque, which is, you all see the little monkeys that are running around. You will eventually see many monkeys in school. I don't mean other students, but like actual monkeys, right? So NTU has a lot of monkeys. So if you're living in hall, right, this is a problem you have to deal with, depending on which hall you're in, right? So yeah, so Prof. Michael will guide you to handling the monkeys. Conservation psychology, right? How many of you very passionate about the climate, environment? Nobody cares? No, there are some. Okay, climate is important, making money is more important. Terrible, right? So conservation psychology is a growing field, right? So how are we destroying the world? How can we do things to make it a little bit better, right? Abe's Guide to Human Language, this is taught by Prof. Susie Stiles, so very interesting. Really a lot of the linguistic stuff comes here as well. And then we also have animal behavior. So you realize that psychology is not just people-related work. It's what we know from animal models as well, right? Social cognition, basically how we think with regards to intergroup social relations. Human memory, how we remember things, right? Why we forget things, right? Child psychopathology, very popular one. Basically, what's wrong with kids these days, right? K-pot, right? Child psychopathology. So how do you know that a child is going to go through like, going to develop personality disorders, right? Yeah, psychopathology. Biopsychosocial criminology, basically what it is that it sounds like, right? The biopsychosocial nature of criminals and crime, right? Personnel psychology, I think Paul still teaches this, the other Paul. It's IO board, right? Psychological testing, so basically psychometrica, how to develop scale measures, psychological tests and stuff like that. Health psychology is, yeah, so how is it that people interact with health, with chronic diseases, with terminal illnesses, so on and so forth, and culture as well, cultural psychology. So these are some of the level 3 modules that you can take, right? Okay, then we have, bam, more stuff. I won't go through every single one, but these are your level 4 modules. So now the confusion starts to set in. What are your level 4 mods? So your level 4 mods are also always changing, right? It depends on the time of year, very seasonal, so the mods are seasonal. In semester 1, faculty usually like teach certain mods. In semester 2, it's certain mods, so know which module is being taught when, right? That's important, so you can plan ahead. So say, for example, you really like Prof. Olivia's work, right, on criminology, and you really want to focus on that forensic track, criminology track. You can probably pick things like correctional psychology, forensic criminal psychology, and you need to know when these courses are being run, right? So this is important lah. So you see a lot of lab modules, so the level 4 stuff is very applied, right? It's very applied. So you have everything from like the basic stuff, you know, your social, cultural, all that kind of thing. Trauma, IO, mental health, right? I think this is called Are You Okay, right? Counseling, criminal behavior, sensation perception, qualitative methods. So for those of you, I get a lot of refugees from the quantitative, from the statistics courses. So some students are like, I cannot do this anymore, Prof, please help me. So that's where I come in, and I teach you qualitative methods. So qualitative methods is interviews, focus group discussions, talking to people, getting data through things that aren't just numbers, right? To holistically create a research design or research study, right? So I get a lot of students who are interested in that as well, right? So then your specific stuff. Oh, one thing that I do want to talk about is the last dance, right? So the last dance is Singapore's only thanatology course so far, right? NTU is the only place that teaches you the psychology, psychosocial perspectives of death, dying, grief, and bereavement. So this is taught by Prof. Andy Ho, who is very, very inspirational. He was my supervisor as well. Very inspirational, very, very insightful course. But if you're going through some stuff, you're going through losses, be careful. I wouldn't say don't take it. It can probably help you out a lot. but be honest with yourself whether you can emotionally handle it, right? So again, it's not for everyone, just the same way that statistics is not for everyone, right? Or like the criminal stuff is not for everyone, right? So same, last dance is not for everyone, right? But if you feel a pull towards it, if you feel that this is an area that I want to contribute towards, I want to learn more about, you can always write to us as well, right? So Prof. Andy teaches this course. I was his TA for many, many years, so I also know a lot about it. So you can feel free to write to us if you're struggling, thinking about whether or not you should pick this up, right? So write to your professors. If you want to know a little bit more about the courses, you can also write to them. Most of us will answer you within 3 to 5 working days, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is your, okay, so stuff that you have to do other than your major, right? Go ahead, go ahead. Right. Yay, woo! No, okay. Okay, more of your professors, right? Okay, right, okay, wonderful. Okay, so ICC. So ICC are interdisciplinary collaborative core, and you can see that it really encompasses a lot of different stuff over here, right? You have things like communications, right? How do you talk to people from engineering? How do you talk to engineers? How do you talk to science students, right? And the engineering students are always like, oh, why are the social sciences even a thing? And then we are like, okay, so I always say, right, science and technology without the humanities is Elon Musk, right? So that's why you get science technology without the humanities behind it, right? Okay, so that's ICC. So you have ethics and civics. So this is becoming increasingly more important. Dr. Kai Xiang teaches this. Very fun guy, very interesting module, very interesting course. You have health and well-being. So how is it that you remain healthy psychologically, mentally, physically? Sustainability, I think NTU's favorite word is sustainability, right? We're always saying it, but yeah, I think it's important that you guys know all of these kinds of stuff as well. And it really does help prepare you for eventually contributing to society in some way. And then your professional ICC stuff, right? So you can choose one from a pool of different courses. So this is something that you need to discuss and think about a little bit more as well. And then you have your CSL mod, which is 3 AUs. So quite a lot of things to push in, and many of you are feeling this right now, huh? Right? Like what is going on? Don't worry, right? How do you pick courses, what to choose, right? You might be panicking right now, like what do I know? How do I know what I like? How do I know what I don't like? How do I know what is interesting? How should I select my modules, right? So my personal advice, very Disney, follow your heart, right? Possibly, maybe, right? Sometimes it's good to follow your heart. Sometimes it leads you to breakups and just toxic relationships. So think very carefully about this as well, right? If you feel a general pull towards a topic that you really enjoy, right? Social psychology, cultural psychology, maybe like statistics, right? You really feel like, hey, I can be good at this. Then that's one part of you uncovering this jigsaw puzzle that you are in right now, right? So following your heart can help, right? So find out again which courses are offered in which semester, and these are usually on rotation by faculty, right? So don't expect the faculty to teach the same course in Sem 1 and Sem 2, right? That rarely happens if it does. And usually that's for the lower level courses. The more advanced stuff, we do rotate, right? I only take qualitative methods on Sem 2, for example, right? Okay, aim for thematic coherence. So this is something that we discussed as faculty. You know, I was talking with Prof. Susie as well. And yeah, so thematic coherence. So when you get a transcript, right, when your final transcript as a student is out, right, your modules need to make sense, right? So if you really want to work as a medical social worker, for example, or in counseling, right, you really want to work in counseling, then you're taking things like, you know, like the neurobio stuff, that might not help your case when you are talking to your interviewers, right? So you want to make sure that your modules are coherent. So if you feel that, you know, you want to work in the healthcare setting, then of course you want to take health psychology, you want to do positive psychology, you want to do stuff like that, right? If you want to do like really, you have decided, okay, I've sold statistics a lot today, and you want to become a statistician, you want to make some serious cash as a biostatistician consultancy firm, then go ahead and pick all the stats modules, right, that you can do, right? So you want to make sure that your transcript makes sense, right? And this can also work for your BDEs. So you can also select BDEs that make sense, right? Rather than suddenly doing like pottery from ADM, which is, I guess, good for your mental health, but, you know, but whether or not it adds anything to your transcript, yeah, that remains to be seen, lah. And actually, the pottery course is quite popular, right? Very difficult to get, right? Sculpture and pottery, right? So, should you listen to your friends? I mean, talking to your seniors is very, very helpful, more so than that one person on the internet, because if you Google NTU courses, psychology, one name pops up, right? What's her name, ah? Gwyneth, Gwendolyn, Gwyneth, Gwyn, right? Gwyneth, yeah. So Gwyneth's work, she has a very comprehensive blog on the modules, lah, right? But it is not current at all. Her stuff is very old, right? And she rates and ranks people that aren't even in the faculty anymore, right? So don't listen to that blog, right? Don't listen to the blog, right? Don't listen to Gwyneth. She came back to do her master's actually, right? So don't listen to Gwyneth. Listen to, I mean, like, talk to your seniors, lah. I think this can be very, very helpful, right? So your seniors who have completed your modules, there are some of them are sitting here. You can ask them a bit more about how you can structure modules, which modules go well together, because sometimes you don't want to take a very difficult, very cognitive, cerebral module, right, and then take like 5 of them in a row. You're going to be burnt out, right? So you maybe want to temper it with something a little bit more easier to handle, right? So yeah. And towards the end of your course for your level 3, level 4, the exams taper off. So you might not be doing final exams also, right? So yeah. So most importantly, yes, you can listen to everyone, but I think it's important that you come to your own decision, right? Come to your own decisions about what modules you want to take, right? This is very, very important, lah, right? Because you might really like stats, but someone else might be like, oh my God, you're a psychopath for doing this, right? But someone else might be like, okay, yeah, you know, it's up to you what you want to take away from this, right? What you want to take away from your psychology learning, right? So I think that's very, very important. Come to your own decisions, right? Don't be influenced by what people say, right? If you are confused about which modules to take, you want to know more about the modules, come and talk to us directly, right? Can? Okay, so your study plan, this is how it can look like. Yan Chia and Hui Ching can really help you out with this. If you're confused, right? So throughout the years, across your 4 years, this is how generally it can look like, right? So your year 1, you take a couple of, Sem 1, you take your basic, your intro to psych, your intro to research methods, and then a few of your ICC and maybe 1 BDE. And then for Sem 2, you do the same. You start taking your 2000 mods, your course. Can? Okay. Then Sem 3, similar, you start taking a 3000 module that you're interested in, and so on and so forth. And then you might want to squeeze, this is with 2 internships, right? So your internship modules are now compulsory. You have to do internship in psychology, right? So your internships can either be self-sourced, meaning you can go and find a company to take you on as an intern, or you can do matching with our internship system over here, right? So up to you, right? Up to you. The question I receive a lot, are unpaid internships worth it? What do you guys think? Are unpaid internships worth it? No, yes. I mean, it depends, lah. If you feel that you really want to work with these people and they have a lot to offer you, that's on you, lah. But personally, I feel like try and get some cash out of the internship, right? If you go through the official channels, right, all the internships that you find in the internship platform here in NTU are paid internships, right? So there's a minimum that these companies have agreed to pay you, right? So this is an example with 2 summer internships. So this leaves you very nicely to concentrate on your graduate project in your last year with minimal cognitive load, right? Minimal academic load, right? So this is a good example of how you can plan your modules. Can? And hit all your AUs. Okay, very good. Okay, for example, those of you taking double major biological sciences, this is also an example of how it can be, right? So similar, 2 internships, and then you do your BS core. Can? All right, okay, so you might be confused about this, but don't worry, our wonderful student services are here to help you. So if you have any questions, please ask them. Right? Okay, graduation project, right? So like I mentioned before, GP remains prerequisite for honors. So if you want to get your honors distinction, first class, second upper, all that kind of stuff, you need to have a graduate project. So you can opt in if you just hit the 3.9. If it's below, then appeals will not help. So try, if you really want to do a FYP or GP, whatever you want to call it, try and make sure you hit the CGPA requirement, right? Okay, so like I mentioned, you can either do a large-scale research project, which is a qualitative project, a survey, experimental study. That's option B with your supervisor, or it can be a systematic review or long format lit review. That's option A, right? This is something for you to decide when you get there, right? Okay, so we've had undergraduates with the GP program be quite successful. These are a few of my students. So all 3 of them were my graduate project mentees, and they managed to present their work at the Singaporean Grief and Bereavement Conference. Right. So Farah over here, Farah ended up winning Best Poster Award. She beat out, like actual. Like real, no, not real. She beat out like people who have been in the field for a long time, like researchers who are currently practicing, right, for best poster, right? So your GP can take you places, right? Your graduate project. It is helpful. It is a good thing for you to be talking about in your interviews later as well, all right? Can? So this can really be a very, very valuable leg up. Okay, oops. Yeah, overseas actually, nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday. Right, 50 pounds a person. Overseas exchange, okay, this one everyone's very, very excited about this, right? Overseas exchange. Your core courses at ICC must be taken at NTU, right? So if you choose to go for overseas exchange, what we call the GEM program, you cannot take a core mod over there. You have to do everything here, right? But you can transfer back up to 20 AUs with maximum of 3 major PEs during exchange. Right? So when you are ready to go for exchange, this is a good direction to think about. Exchange, I think, can give you a lot of real-world experience. You can find out how things are being done in other universities, allows you to travel. It's a lot of fun. So talk to your seniors who have been on exchange as well. They can give you very real stories about their experiences. And also Eureka program. So Eureka, again, is by invitation only. So usually in your 2nd and 3rd year, so Eureka project. So this is where you are tied to a professor who's doing current research work and you're contributing to that in some way, right? So you're expected to do about 160 hours of research over 11 months. So it's like a mini FYP, right? But you're working on stuff that is actually out there in the real world. So with actual real data, right? So again, Eureka, pretty prestigious, and then you have like the Eureka conference and stuff like that. So very, very interesting, very cool direction forward if you are interested in academia and research in general, right? Okay, so you can opt to do 2nd major or a minor as well if you want more breadth and depth to your education. But yeah, so if you're an overachiever, which I'm sure many of you are secretly, right? And you want to pick up a 2nd major, let us know early, right? Let student services know early, right? So that we can plan your future trajectory here. Okay, recommendations, right? How do you stop from going nuts with all this information that I've just given you? Plan ahead. This is the most important thing that I can teach you today, right? If it's one thing that you take away other than all the stuff that I said, is plan ahead. This is very, very important. At least 1 or 2 semesters ahead, preferably 2 semesters ahead, right? So that you know what you're doing. So when to take what modules, when to do your internship, when to go on exchange, all these you need to plan out well. If you're confused about this, your seniors can help as well as student services. So again, come and talk to us, right? So course first, clear your core module. Trust me, you do not want to be taking a very basic level 2 module in your 4th year, right? It's usually the content commitment is a lot for a core module, right? And you should be focusing on other things rather than just cramming more content at that point in time, right? So be consistent as well. Read at least 3 psychology subjects per semester and continuously clear your BDE. Don't wait until everything and push it back and push everything back and then panic at the end. Right, then you have to do something called overload, where you're just taking way more modules than you need to, and then you're stressed out, and then you come to us and you're like, oh my God, help me, and then I have to refer you to the case manager, and then it becomes a whole thing, and then like, yeah, so don't do that, right? You can very smoothly finish your degree, and that's what we all want, right? So your level 4000 subjects, you might be very excited to do your level 4000. Oh my God, this is what I always look forward to. This is like what I want to do, right? Try to do that only in year 3 so that you have a good foundation and understanding of the programs here, right? So about 5 to 6 courses every sem is good. Anything lesser might cause you to overload a little bit later. Anything more might be a bit too stressful. So again, your mental health is very important. Make sure that you are taking what you can handle, right? And try to speak to everyone, right? Talk to the student services, talk to your professors, talk to your tutors, talk to the PhD students who are your TAs, talk to your seniors, get a broad view of your academic trajectory, but always come to your own decision and your own conclusions about this, right? Ken, right? And your flexible grading option, so this used to be called the SU, right, where you can decide that you don't want to, you feel that, oh my God, you did really badly in this one thing and you kind of want to not pretend that this grade never happened in your transcript. That's known as a flexible grading option. So be careful when you use it as well, and whether you really need to, right? Now you can actually know your grade before you exercise this, correct? Yeah, back then it was like, just like, oh, you guess, I feel I'm not doing well, and then you just SU the module, then actually you get an A+, then you cry, right? So that has happened previously. Okay, Ken, your FGOs? Okay, so academic fraud, academic dishonesty, plagiarism, make sure this doesn't happen to you, please. You know, cheating, lying, stealing, all that kind of stuff. Academic dishonesty, paying another student to do your work for you, paying external agencies to write your essays, getting all this stuff off the internet. Don't do that, right? Please don't do that, right? Ken, I don't have to tell you, similar to what you've always encountered in your JC Poly careers. Right? Oh, this thing, right? It's giving us a lot of headache right now, right? Okay, ChatGPT, right? If you use ChatGPT, look up, if you want to use ChatGPT, first thing, check with your module leaders, check with the professor who's teaching you the course, whether or not ChatGPT is allowed. I think most of us are moving towards allowing yes, right? So, but check again, right? And check how it can be used, right? So if you want to use generative AI, give proper citations, ask your professors, check your facts. For the love of God, please check your facts, because ChatGPT likes to make shit up all the time, right? All the time, right? You can own self go and like randomly create a name and ask for papers, and it'll generate like papers that don't exist, right? And of course, nothing beats your own ideas, lah. So I think the use of ChatGPT was best. I think how I can describe it the best way as an analogy is that, how many of you play music? Y'all play music? Okay, so y'all know jazz, right? Like jazz music. So I was talking to a jazz musician, and she said that jazz music is very interesting. You have to be an expert in what you do, right? You have to know your scales, your arpeggios, you know, your run-ons, all that kind of stuff. You need to know how the musical instrument works. And when you play jazz, all of this is inside you, you understand it completely, and then when you're playing the jazz, you're improvising, you forget all of this, right? And you're just going with that, your intrinsic knowledge, and then you create a beautiful piece of music. ChatGPT is the same thing. You need to know how to write an essay well before you use it, right? you need to know how to write an essay well by yourself first before you employ ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT can give you a lot of good ideas and stuff like that, but sometimes it's quite superficial, and we can tell, right? Generally, the faculty can tell that the ideas are a little bit lame and probably from ChatGPT, right? So nothing beats your own ideas, right? So again, uphold your pledge to your integrity in learning. If you need more information on that, check out your academic integrity, right? So this is why you should not use ChatGPT for therapy. Right? So mean, okay? All right, so we're all here for your support. If you need to talk to someone in a specific role, your HOD is Dr. Andy Ho, your FYP coordinator is Prof. Michael, your HP 1000 instructor, right? Prof. Darren is over there. Prof. Chin Hong as well, right? Your basic who does like your level 1 stats. And if you need to know a bit more about internship, come and speak to me, right? As your internship coordinator. And of course, our wonderful student services are also here to help. They should be paid more for what they're doing and what they're going through, right? But yes, so write in, you generally get a response pretty quickly. Okay, questions? Any questions so far? Right? Any questions? Yes? Yeah. I think you have to choose it yourself, right? For second year, right? Core courses. Oh, allocated, sorry, yes. This is why you should talk to student services, not me, right? Okay, yeah. Any other questions? Okay, if not, let's get you to meet your mentors.